Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Source Material, episode 212, I think. Yes, it is I, Jesse Starcher, bringing you another episode of Source Material. And joining me tonight, he is on benzocycline, the unicycle.
I'm on doxycycline.
Doxycycline.
100 milligrams twice a day. That's the antibiotic. Finally. It only took me a month of causing my wife to want to divorce me because I'm gross. Those were her exact words.
We're jumping into the 2000s now. We went from 1971.
Yay! When people get to points.
2014, and we're covering Captain Marvel.
I leave it to Captain Marvel.
I leave it to you, sir, to give us the title of this here book.
Oh, Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel. Higher, harder, faster, now, yes. I know. Higher, further, faster, more. Brought to you by DeConnick and Lopez from the Marvel Now series.
That's right. Yeah. Kelly Sue DeConnick, and art by David Lopez. So, now, Mark, I don't think this has to be said, but, I always got to cover it here. Why are we doing this particular book this week?
This past Friday, Captain Marvel debuted, despite trolls and man babies trying to tear it down. I actually heard an interesting theory today that they shot multiple cuts of Endgame with different uses of Brie Marvel's Captain Marvel, depending on how well the movie does and how much man trolling there is.
Really?
Yeah. Like, if the movie doesn't do up to expectation, they're using one cut. If there's a lot of like male negativity towards the movie, they feel like it'll spill over into Endgame, they're using another cut. If it's like wildly successful on all fronts with no problem, they're using like a different cut. And each cut has like a differently powered, or each cut has like a different amount of time spent on screen with Captain Marvel.
Every single one of those better be on the DVD release. That's all I got to say, because
maybe they should have called it Avengers Bandersnatch. And you could
Bandersnatch.
You can just choose your own, Brie Larson cut.
Yeah, which is the least offensive cut to you? Here you go. Just pick this one.
I feel like all movies should this should be the trend now, is that movies should be cut with multiple cuts, and you should choose the cut that's least offensive to you. That's
weird time to be living in when now I understand Disney wants to make a movie that's
when fags are easily mortified.
They want to make a movie that is probably going to be one of the best movies out there, and having it marred by some kind of stupidity that I've seen other movies have to go through would be ridiculous. But imagine how many movies in the past have been made where they just didn't give a shit what you thought. They didn't care. That's what a movie was. It was a director's vision. Now, all of a sudden, we have to take into account everybody's potential opinion.
Feelings. Their feelings.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you think about like George Lucas, right? George Lucas had a vision for Star Wars, and then he was like, okay, my vision is way too expansive. I'm only going to make it about this part of the movie, and, if it does well, I can always go back and do some more of this stuff. Life is long. If I'm successful, I'll have more opportunities to do more with this, but I'm only going to do this part of it. And the movie does well opening weekend. He's quoted as saying, like, it's in documentaries and stuff, he's like, yeah, let's see how well it does over time. Mm-hmm. It turned out to be a phenomenon that, that's what he's known for, and that, and he ended up selling the entire franchise for like $4 billion. But he certainly wasn't doing like opinion polling. Like, okay,
no, he was not.
How much action should we give Leia? Will this upset the men? There's none of that. There's the cut where all of the characters are played by women. There's the cut where everyone's played by Jawas. There's none of that.
There's no Jar Jar Binks. There is Jar Jar Binks. And I know we're going a little bit forward ahead in time there, but okay. Speaking of Star Wars, this story that we're getting ready to get into had me thinking.
There's a cut where Han Solo was named Han Cisgender. Go.
Perfect.
I'm sorry.
Perfect. Now, this story we're getting into gave me kind of a little bit of a Star Wars feel. It wasn't massive and right on the nose, but it was definitely like something I could see as being one of the one of the offshoots. Like I haven't seen Solo yet, but I could almost kind of see that this being something that Han Solo would have got into. Either way,
this had a very like Fifth Element, sci-fi, action adventure, Guardians of the Galaxy, who are in this type feel.
Yeah. So that being said, okay, like I said, creative team, Kelly Sue DeConnick, art by David Lopez. This comes out in 2014. Let me ask you real quick before we get into the synopsis. Have you ever read much of anything with Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel in it?
No, anything that she was in. She was always an Avenger, and she was always wearing her bathing suit with the Flats logo.
Well, I actually had the chance to download this comic on Hoopla. I think I shared that with you guys. This is
What's all the hoopla about?
This is an app that actually works in conjunction with your local library. Now, I don't.
Oh, that. Okay.
Yeah. Like, I don't know how the local library makes any money off of this, but I can tell you, like, what I did was I downloaded the app. You have, I think, 10 holds that you can do, or 10 things that you can do per month. So it's kind of like a library. You can only go in and get so many per trip sometimes when it comes to like DVDs and stuff like that. But it worked pretty phenomenally, very much like Comixology. So where you would scroll and it would go panel by panel on your screen. So even though you may be reading it on a phone, it actually worked out really well because it would zoom into the panels that made, and it made the story flow and make sense. And I have got Scooby-Doo Apocalypse on there now. So I'm going to, it's all free. You don't have to pay a thing. As long as you have your library card, it asks for that number, put that in there, and you're good to go for 9 holds or nine uses per month for whatever you want to use it for. So anyway, worked well for me. I just want to give that a quick plug because actually I've been hearing a lot about it here recently. And Mark, if you ever want to read some DC, or if we ever have any DC on there, they get their trades out very quickly on Hoopla. Like once it drops on the market, usually you can see it on Hoopla probably within a month, if that. So anyway, all right. So Captain Marvel, higher, further, faster, more. After rescuing a young refugee, Nalanian, which is an alien race that got moved off of their planet because of the builders. And I'm not going to get into all that. Just imagine a big destructive force that was destroying planets, and this race had to leave.
Syphilis made its way from the DC universe.
Big crossover. And it made the Nalanians move. So a young Nalanian named Tick stole a ship and headed to Earth to try and ask for help from the Avengers. You see, her people had been being poisoned, and there's a little bit of an issue on this planet that they're on. And we'll cover that here in a second. But after rescuing this refugee, I think I assume she immediately goes into a coma. And at one point, she's awake and screaming in this ship as it's crashing towards Earth. And then the next thing you know, Carol's in a ship out in space, and she is supposedly comatose. But either way, Carol Danvers, a.k.a. Captain Marvel, agrees to become the face of the Avengers in space and also maybe find a little of herself along the way. Returning the alien to her home world, Carol becomes involved in the diplomatic matter between the refugees of the planet and the Galactic Alliance, specifically the Spartax Empire. Befriending some of the locals, believing the planet is poisoning them, Carol learns the Alliance intend to move the race again, as it appears many of the residents are becoming ill. It is soon revealed that the Spartax Emperor, Jason, is forcing the Nalanians off the planet as he has found the very thing that is poisoning them happens to be one of the rarest elements in the universe, vibranium. Captain Marvel now has to make a decision.
I thought it was going to be wifely understanding.
No, what the fuck did you just say? Wifely understanding? Yeah, that's pretty rare, sir. Sorry. The snot goblet runneth over, and you are done. So Captain Marvel now has to make a decision that may put the very people she came to protect in jeopardy. And that's only if she can convince the Nalanians to allow her to be their protector. Jam-packed with action and intrigue, not to mention appearances by the Guardians of the Galaxy and Carol's own Flurkin, or her cat,
Flurkin cat.
Captain Marvel Volume 1, Higher, Further, Faster, More, gives us a glimpse into the life of a cosmic hero with a very human side. So, Mark, let's give us your thoughts here.
Flurkin cat.
That is one of my first notes, actually, when I was writing things down as to what to talk about. A Rocket Raccoon shows up on the ship, and Carol, by the way, could not convince Rhodey, who apparently they're a thing, which I did not know. James Rhodes, the War Machine, or Iron Patriot. Is that who he is now? Iron Patriot? Sure. I can't remember in this book. Okay. Anyway, James Rhodes and Carol Danvers, their thing. And when he talks her into going to space, or at least they talk about her going into space as part of the Avengers, she asks him, can you take care of my cat? He's like, absolutely not. So I'm like, oh, he's joking. He's going to be a nice guy and do that. Nope. She takes the cat with her into space on this ship. So, and then Rocket Raccoon shows up along with the Guardians of the Galaxy. And all of a sudden, Rocket Raccoon just starts flipping his shit and yelling about, you have a Flurkin on board, Kill
it with fire. Kill it with fire.
Kill it before it lays eggs. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And one of the things that I thought was really neat was about how, I think she even said, hey, you're a raccoon. Give this thing a break. And he's like, I am not a raccoon. Did you know that he's not actually a raccoon?
I believe he claims he's not a raccoon. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Interesting stuff. But anyway, yeah, I love that part with the whole Flurkin thing. Yeah. I mean, let's give me your thoughts, Mark. What do you think of this story, and what do you think of Captain Marvel and some of the characters?
After some of the highfalutin stuff that we've read, I do enjoy a simple story.
Yeah.
And this was basically, your bad guy wanted. He wants the vibranium, and it's a tale as old as time. We got to get the natives. It's so funny because we did this to the Native Americans, right? We kicked them off their land, and then we moved them to Oklahoma, and these reservations, and then we kicked them off the reservations. We need it for strategic sheep purposes.
We need this land.
We have a habit of doing that. And now they have casinos, and they take back the white man's money. So it all balances out.
Kill all the white man.
Kill all the white man. It's your fault I'm doing this. Kill all the white man. Anyway, no little no effects for you. But it's the same thing here. They their planet got destroyed. They were relocated to this planet, and they suddenly realized, hey, there be vibranium on that planet. We got to get them off of it so that we can get it. And but we'll tell them oh, it's because you're getting sick. That's why. And and they're like, no. How about what? So it's so very Monty Python, right? With the temptation. It's just like we're just getting a little sick. We can fix it. No, you're too sick. You're too sick. You have to get off the planet. No. We've almost got it cured. No, you're all gonna die. That's the argument, right? and Carol Danvers is just kind of caught in the middle of it. She's a girl in the world. She wants to go into space. She's feeling the itch. She's not quite feeling settled at home. And she just sort of involves herself in this interplanetary quarrel. Mm-hmm. And it was a neat little adventure that tied up nicely after 6 issues. There wasn't really anything hard to understand about it. And there's some really funny moments, the best being Rocket Raccoon screaming, kill it with fire at her cat. I want to see. And apparently the next trade is called Stay Fly, and she's just covered in cats.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if you saw that at all.
No.
Go ahead and look up an image for Captain Marvel Volume 2, Stay Fly. This speaks to the Troubles with Tribbles Star Trek episode.
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Rocket.
That makes me want to read it.
Yeah, that's definitely. Oh my gosh! My guess is that she accidentally she happens upon an actual flock of Flurkins. And
which is also the name of my '80s cover band, Flock of Flurkins.
They would definitely finish, if anything. Finish your Swedish. Your Flock of Flurkins, everybody.
We're Flock of Flurkins. We like the meatballs. The one thing I did not like about this book, and this is a personal thing. As a 43-year-old man, cisgender, mansplaining myself. No, as a 43-year-old comic book fan, I can pick up a book. For the most part, I can contextualize things based on what I'm reading in the story, especially if it's pretty well told. You don't need to, you can pick this up, and it would help if you knew what happened with the Builders. It would help if you knew what preceded this in Captain Marvel's timeline, but it's not necessary if you're an adult who reads comics and can contextualize things. Here's my problem with this comic book. This got a lot of play in feminist circles, and this and the actual Miss Marvel, the one where with the Inhuman with the elastic powers, that's like a teenager.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Both of those got a lot of play in feminist circles, and a lot of play on, if you want to get your girl into your daughter into comics, bring her these. So like both Captain Marvels were very high on those lists.
Okay.
I was talking to my wife about this in between, coughs and spits and blowing my nose.
Directly on her.
Wiping snot everywhere. Marking my territory, as it were. This now belongs to me. Yeah.
I ain't touching it.
I was really excited to, like, when I found this at Ollie's, I was really excited to give it to Lily to read once we did the show and I was done with it, with the Captain Marvel movie coming out. And after reading it, I'm really disappointed. I don't think she'd get it. I think it's written at too high a level. And so I think if you're trying to get like your teenage or your tween daughter into Captain Marvel, this might work out a little bit better, but I don't feel like there's a significant hook here.
Okay.
I feel like if you're already a comic book fan, it's fine. If you're interested in this character because of the movie, it's fine. But if you're coming into it cold and you're a little kid and your reading levels only,
no way.
You're not going to get it.
No, there's no way. I mean, I could not give this to. You said she's going to be turning 9, right?
She just turned 8 in January.
Okay, all right. I understand where you're coming from. I mean, there's definitely too much history for a little kid to hop into, and I actually think she I expect them to feel comfortable with. Man, when I was a kid, I liked Star Wars. But there was so much I didn't understand, as I grew older. And that was because there was the whole political stuff that was going on between the Empire and the rebels and all this. I just saw people fighting. And that's what you would see if you were a little kid reading this. But I think the strength of Carol throughout this and what she finds herself, just like you said, may be a little bit too high concept for somebody like that. And that may not be what they were shooting for. I have no idea what Kelly Sue DeConnick was shooting for here. You look at the pages, if you could just look at the pages and the art, she definitely carries herself as a very formidable female. But in reading it, seems like
she is definitely a cocksure woman.
If you can be one, she can be one. She's one. What I was saying was, I think that if you read this, one of the strengths of Captain Marvel, in the writing, is Kelly Sue DeConnick's way of trying to show that she is all by herself. She's representing the Avengers all by herself on a distant planet, and she has to talk her way into this, this almost kind of like standstill where the people don't want to move, but she believes that for the betterment of the society, they need to get their ass on the ships and off the planet. That is until she realizes what actually is going on. That's probably where, if this is something that's going to be championed by feminists or whatever, it's the fact that she can handle herself. It's the fact that she is in the midst of a conflict between a race, basically, and a galactic entity, a galactic alliance, if you will. She has to take it upon her shoulders. And one of the things that happens right off the bat, she gets shut down. She gets shut down as soon as she walks in, and I thought, well, this will be pretty easy. She's going to walk in, she's going to tell this leader of these people what she thinks, and everything's going to be, snap, everything's done. She'll be able to easily convince them to do that. And the leader's like, no, you don't understand what's going on here. Let me explain. These are our people. We don't want them to leave. We don't want them, if we leave, only the people that can go are the ones that are able to. The people that are being sick have to be left behind. I don't want to leave my people behind. So it's a real conundrum that they're in. One of the things that I saw describing her was the word bullheaded. Now, here's the thing. I don't know much about the character of Carol Danvers that came before, so I don't know how she's normally written, but they said she's very much kind of like a representative or a representation of Captain America, and that's in that very strong will, that very stubborn will, I guess you would say. She goes into the situation, she thinks she's going to handle it with some smooth words, and the leader's like, no, that's not going to be that easy, especially when they sit her down in front of like the council, or not the council, but this like town hall meeting where everybody's yelling at her and shit. And I'm like, oh, geez, good luck. I don't know how you're going to handle this, which I thought was probably the most interesting part. What other thoughts do you have here on the story?
This is my kind of thing. It was lighthearted action adventure space fantasy. Like one of the reasons why I like Solo, it was basically like a Western in space. Mm-hmm. There were no real highfalutin ideas. You don't get bogged down. Like the political stuff is pretty easy to understand. The bad guy wants the resource on the planet, and the Indians are sitting on it.
Yep.
So find a cockamamie reason to move the Indians.
And it wasn't. This didn't feel extremely overwrought and preachy to me. I mean, they could have done this differently to where it actually really ham-fisted, with that.
No,
and that wasn't what I got.
No, I didn't feel like this had like an agenda. I felt like they were telling a story that had politics in it, but I didn't necessarily feel like this didn't feel like a Mark Russell thing where where on page 7 Keenan Ivory Wayans just yells message at you.
For the 5th time.
So overall, I liked it. I would recommend it to another adult or maybe a teenager who is like, "Hey, that Captain Marvel movie looks interesting." A lot of my my male friends are wanting to set the theater on fire. I want to give it a chance. What comic should I read? Mm-hmm. I might steer them to this one.
Yeah. This was an easy read, too. I mean, my goodness. It was Kelly Sue DeConnick knows how to get the point across. I remember that was one of your criticisms there with 1970s Avengers.
Let me tell you the difference. When I actually read every word on the page, I don't start skipping words, and then I don't start skipping whole pages. You've got my attention. I think when I'm like words, I'm like, not so good.
There's one part I really liked where Tick, that girl, wakes up on the ship, and then she decides to steal Carol's ship, but she can't pilot it worth a shit, so she's just hyperspace driving all over the place. And I was like, this is actually fun. This is to see her actually have to deal with it, and the Guardians are trying to track her down, and you got I am Grooting all over the place. But anyway, I had a good time reading it too. I think they did a fine job. Now, I don't know how long Kelly Sue DeConnick stays on this series. I assume she helms it for quite a while, but she did a great job, in my opinion, in these first 6 issues. And I had a good time reading it as well. I want to real quick, just touch on something. If you remember when we were talking, I think it was Emerald Twilight, one of the things that Pat mentioned was about Carol Danvers and something that happened to her in comic history. So, sir, I went to the wiki, and I want to read this to you real quick and just get your quick thoughts on it, okay? In Avengers number 200, October of 1980, Ms. Marvel, which is Carol Danvers, is kidnapped by a character named Marcus, the apparent son of Avengers foe Immortus, and taken into an alternate dimension where she is brainwashed, seduced, and impregnated. She gives birth on Earth to a child that rapidly ages into another version of Marcus, who is ultimately unable to remain on Earth after Hawkeye mistakenly damages his machine. Takes Miss Marvel back to the alternate dimension with no opposition from the Avengers, who perceive Miss Marvel and Marcus to have fallen in love. Now, did you hear what I just said? She gave birth to this guy, okay? And she is apparently brainwashed by him, seduced, and impregnated. And the Avengers are like, oh, she's in love. We'll see you later. Comic book historian Carol A. Strickland criticized the storyline in an essay titled The Rape of Miss Marvel, citing Marcus's line, "This is Marcus, this is what he says. Finally, after relative weeks of such efforts, and admittedly with a subtle boost from Immortus's machines, you became mine." Strickland posited that this constituted rape. As a former writer of the Solo title, Chris Claremont also commented on the inappropriateness of the storyline. So that was what Pat was talking about. Anyway, controversial right there, sir. Controversial.
Like, I don't know. What do you,
well, it's interesting that they did that with this character back in. Now, of course, that all got retconned. As soon as somebody else got a hold of it, they're like, whoa, wait a fucking second. Hold on.
Hold on here. There's a lot of nonsense.
This is 1980. We were just talking about in the 70s, comics were kind of trying to make that leap out of the kids realm of things and into more of the teenage and adult side of things. And now we're in 1980, and I don't even understand how that gets past code. I really don't. Of course, code is more about, okay, what is the themes? What are the things that are happening in this comic book?
Don't show penetration. if things are maybe alluded to, like they're not trying to censor as such. They're looking for boobs and insertion. That's it.
And violence and any type of. Of course, that didn't stop some of them. But yeah, I mean, it's to me that's it's an interesting part of comic book history that a lot of people were like, they look at it and they're kind of repulsed as to what it became and what happened. And sometimes they're probably perplexed as to how in the world would, Marvel Comics allow something like that to happen to one of their characters. But either way,
I mean, people get raped in stories. I get what you're saying, and I'm not picking at you.
No, I hear
you. But it's like we act as if, certain things in stories, like, oh my God, what a horrible thing. These are things that happen to people, and any one of them can be used as a plot point. I think the problem becomes how it's used.
I think, and why.
Right.
I mean, the big thing is why. Why would you do that?
Well, I mean, if you're sitting around the table, because here's the thing. It can be one of two reasons. Either they sat around the table like, what would sell more issues? Raping Miss Marvel. That's what the fans really want.
There's no way.
Or they said, here's the story we want to tell. Let's see if people gravitate to this character and stay with her and root for her and want to see her. They want to see comeuppance be handed out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they you have to do bad things to your heroes in order for them to rise up and come back and and hand out comeuppance to the bad guys.
That's true. Interesting and kind of a weird time in Captain Marvel, or I should say Carol Danvers history. Well, that will be our coverage, Mark Radulich, of Captain Marvel. It will be Higher, Further, Faster, More, Captain Marvel Volume 1. Mark, let's get into plugs here, man. What do we got coming up on the schedule?
I will not be on the next two shows, so if you've had enough of my monkey ass, you're in luck. The next two shows are Fatal Attractions, which I will not be on. I will not be partaking. And then after that is Scooby-Doo Apocalypse. I won't be on that show either. But those are your next two source materials. Tomorrow on Damn You Hollywood is the review for Captain Marvel. On the 13th of March is In Flames, I, The Mask. And right before I go on my spring break cruise, Robert Winfrey is going to tell me all about the One Punch Man.
Ooh.
The previous week, we did a TV party tonight for Black Mirror Bandersnatch, which confused the fuck all out of me. And to hear all about that conversation, you'll have to tune into the podcast. Queensryche, The Verdict on the Metal Hammer of Doom. And finally, I know we keep saying this, we keep putting it off, TV party tonight for The Crown Season 2. When I come back from my cruise, it'll be the week of the 25th. Jesse and whoever else will be doing Scooby-Doo Apocalypse. Then Jesse and I and my Robert Winfrey will be discussing the Netflix biopic for Motley Crue, The Doit. Metal Hammer of Doom will be doing, I believe we'll have Pat on that show as well. Greatest Hits Motley Crue. It's going to be fantastic.
Nice.
And then finally, myself and Sean Comer, assuming he remembers, we'll be looking at On Trial, Scooby-Doo, Monsters Unleashed. That Saturday, March 30th, will be Alexander something Polish versus Juju something African. Boxing on ESPN.
All right, very good. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, I'll throw the old can plugs in here at the end. Don't really have much else to say other than just make sure to have a great one. That's Mark Radulich. I'm Jesse Starcher. We'll be talking to you sometime soon. Have a great one. Bye-bye. Thank you all for joining us. Make sure to give that Radulich in Broadcasting Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts we have to offer. We are at home on Spreaker, but you can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and recently we have hit the air on Spotify. Find your favorite podcast platform and type in RADULICH to subscribe for some great content. If you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word. And as always, we appreciate any feedback and look forward to entertaining you again soon. That's all you guys have down there is just fucking bronchitis all over the place.
Yeah, it's bronchitis in Disney.
The tourism commercials, I can see it now. All right. Well,
cool. May cause drowsiness.
Hooray. Hooray. Please do not podcast while taking this medicine.
Already took it. She said, I called a lawyer today. I said, about what? And she said, I want to file for divorce. I said, but why? And she says, because you're gross. That's why.
The snot goblet's full.
Yes. Not enough sex. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I was sold a bill of goods.
Are you saying that women can't be cocksure? You fucking
no
woman hater.
I'm not going to say anything. Is what I'm going to do. I'm going to move past that.
Is it about women cocks?
Close, because
all right.
All of a sudden this lady's wearing a dress and she just boing. It looked like Hawkeye.
Damn it! You beat me to it. Why won't you write stories so that my daughter will get into comics? You fucks. I don't know about the X-Men, but the Avengers, they like their women in the kitchen making sandwiches. I'll tell you
apparently
that much.
so.